From Anshe Sfar Beth El Emeth Congregation, it's time to take 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of Parshat Beha'alotecha, the basis of our relationship with God. If we look at the Parsha, it says that that when a war, milchama, comes to your nation, over an oppressor who oppresses you, you should be remembered, you should blow the trumpets, and you'll be remembered before God, and God will save you. The Rambam codifies this as a mitzvah. Ramban agrees. It's a mitzvah number 59. However, it comes in three formulas. In the Rambam's list, enumeration of mitzvot, in his book of mitzvot, he focuses on the trumpets. There's a mitzvah to blow the trumpets. And then he says, we're also commanded to blow the trumpets when we have needs and sorrows, and when we call out to God. So is there a mitzvah to call out to God? It's not clear. The Rambam, in his introduction to the laws of fasting, says there's one mitzvah in this book, and that's litzog l'fnei Hashem, to scream out, call out to God. And it's b'chol tzara, and every time there's an eis tzara, the time of troubles, dola, big troubles, which we hope shouldn't come to anybody. But in the actual laws of Tanit, 2 seconds later, after the introduction, the Rambam says it's a mitzvah lizog l'hariyah b'chatzotzros, to call out and to blow trumpets with trumpets. So which one is it? Is lizog or l'hariyah? So he seems to say it's both. It's lizog, to call out, to scream out when there are big troubles, and also to blow the trumpets as well. Today we don't have the trumpets, so we're left with this mitzvah. When there's a big trouble, you have to call out. That's why the laws of Tanit, fast, emergencies. There's emergent prayer, and there's normative prayer. According to the Rambam, there's another mitzvah, mitzvah number 5, which is mitzvah lavdo. Based on the verse in the second paragraph of Shema, and more so on a verse in Mishpatim, it says, thou shalt worship God, or another verse in Devarim which says, you should worship Him. Rambam interprets that there's a mitzvah to pray to God. When? Every day. That's not for emergency. Ramban says, there's no mitzvah to pray to God. The Talmud says over and again, praying is rabbinic. The rabbis instituted 3 prayers, Shachris, Mincha, and Mar. There's a chesed. God gave us a great kindness that we're allowed to pray whenever we want to. Chol Kareinu, we're allowed. It's amazing. Jews can pray to God whenever they want to. Even better than others, but everyone's welcome to pray to God, as Solomon says. It's a great kindness of God. It's not a mitzvah, though. What is a mitzvah according to Ramban? Ramban says, in his critique of the Rambam's 5th mitzvah, he says, it's a mitzvah to daven to Him be'eis tzaros, to have, in times of troubles, that's when it's a mitzvah to pray to Him, only in the time of tzaros. Rabbi Soloveitchik had a clever way of interpreting that. He said, really, there's no debate here. The Ramban says it's a time to pray in the times of tzaros. The Rambam says it's a mitzvah to pray every day. What's the answer? The Rambam holds is a mitzvah that every day you have tzaros. In other words, according to the Rabbi Soloveitchik, the basis of prayer is always tzaros. What is the basis of our relationship with God? Tzaros. What gives us a right to knock on God's door and say, God, I want to talk to you right now? What basis? Tzaros. God is close to all those who call Him when they have tzaros. When they have problems, that's the basis. Now, one could argue that no, that in the Rambam, there are 2 bases for prayer. One is to show that you worship Him. How does praying to God show that you worship? Worship, I understand if you bow to God, you bring Him a sacrifice, that's worship. How is praying to Him worship? It seems the opposite. Prayer is when I want something from God. Worship, you would think, is where I do something for God, so to speak. So the answer is that by saying, excuse me, please, may I have some more? By saying, oh God, I'm turning to you like I'm a nothing and I need you. You're my boss. You're the person who gives me all the handouts. That means I am dependent on you. In other words, You are the master of the universe. So that's why it's a form of worship. So then we can ask ourselves, what is the mechayev? What obliges you to pray? What's the basis of prayer? What's the permission to even pray? The answer is it the dependency? The need to show, I have to show my dependency every day. I'm obligated to show my dependency on God every day. Or is it the tzaras? What obligates me to pray is I have tzaras. When you have tzaras, you're not allowed to just say, well, that's the way the cookie crumbles, as the Rambam says. Rather, says the Rambam, you have to pray. You have to fast. You have to do something about it. You have to blow that trumpet. You have to do something about it. So, if our relationship with God is based on the idea that I have tzaras, and therefore I have to express them. So it's interesting, it's found in the same parsha where everything kind of falls apart. Bamidbar starts, everything's great, and then everything falls apart. When does it start? In our parsha. After this discussion, shortly afterwards, it says the Jews complained, and they desired, and they wanted meat, and they wanted water, and they wanted bread. And God gave them all these different things. And then Moshe complains, and Miriam complains, and Aaron complains, and then later there are spies, and it's just complaints. That's the whole book, is all complaints. But interesting. Isn't that the basis of our relationship with God? Then we just say there's a mitzvah. And when you have tzaras, you call out to God. You say, God, I have tzaras. Help me. What's the difference? Obviously, there's a certain tone. I mean, if you say, why did he take us out of Egypt altogether? Should have left us over there. Obviously, there's a big difference between that and between saying, God, may I please have some more? May give me some bread, please. There is a big difference. But I'd like to suggest that when we say our Shemona Esrei, that's why there has to be the praise and the thanksgiving. In other words, the basis of our prayer is not the praise. Many have argued, Rabbi Lichtenstein has an article about it, that the basis of prayer is need. Rabbi Soloveitchik was very big on this. Basis of prayer is need. Hasidim have a different view. They say basis of prayer is just to connect with God. But you want to do for God. You want to make the world better for God. But Rabbi Soloveitchik said, no, the basis of prayer is a need. But what's the difference between being needy before God and complaining to God? The difference is, in every prayer we insist that we start with the praise of God. God is so great, he can even revive the dead, he can heal the sick. And then we end with thanksgiving. Within that framework, it's not complaining. We avoid becoming the misonanim or those who kivrot satava, those who desired meat. We avoid that by saying, firstly, we thank God for everything. We recognize that God can do everything. Secondly, we thank you. Thank you for listening. We thank you for hearing our prayers. We hope you will hear our prayers. And we thank you for every minute of every day, all the miracles that are constantly with us. And then within that context, we also ask for all kinds of things. And it's that asking, that's our connection with God. What does that mean, it's our connection? Sometimes you have trouble relating to someone, but you say, I can talk to them about this topic. They like sports, they like politics, they like Torah. You can talk to them about different things that you can talk to them, you connect with them in that way. What's our connection with God? What gives us a right to connect with God? What obliges us to connect with God? So the answer is, the Torah says, you know what? Every Jew has tzaros. As Rabbi Soloveitchik would say, there are existential problems that are just, it's not a question of whether you have enough food or you don't have enough food. There are always existential problems. There are always psychological problems. And since there are always these different problems, God says, that's the basis. Take your psychological problems, take your existential problems, take your real concrete problems, bring them to me. Show that you depend on God. And with that, there'll be a relationship. But how do you avoid it becoming a complaining relationship? Make sure, always give the praise and the thanks as part of the prayer. The way Moshe surrounded his prayer of Hanan. First, you started showing me all your greatness, but now help me come into the land of Israel. He taught us how to frame your prayers. As long as we do that, we'll be among those who have the Ovdei Hashem, the worshipers of God, the people who pray to God, and not, chas v'shalom, God forbid, among the misonanim, those who are simply complaining for complaining's sake. And hopefully, God will hear all the prayers of Israel. Thank you. We thank you for joining us here at the Anshe Sfar Beha'alotecha congregation here in Memphis, Tennessee. Join us each week for our discussion of the Parsha. And thanks to Jason Lefkowitz, our producer. Thank you.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein. To learn more, visit asb.org.